African Center for Community and Development works very hard to use limited resources and a difficult environment for research to carry out complex practices and experiments for development and for replication. The organization in this light was able to collect sperms from cocks and to carry out artificial insemination in hens in order to beef up eggs and meat-giving varieties in village poultry. The organization also identified particular strains in local species which help improve their resilience to diseases and to better birds meant for foraging. Here is the process of careful collection of sperms, which is stored at a particular temperature to keep the cells alive during the process of insemination, or in case the sperms need to be transported to another location. The sperm is also from giant meat and egg-giving varieties developed at this research project at the African Center for Community and Development. Here is the active process of artificial insemination in poultry using a specialized needle. This was done following a process of identification of hen fertility. It is hoped that international development organizations and donors will work closely with the management of the organization in order to increase skill across Africa and Cameroon, hence fight poverty and to improve well-being and social development across the continent and in the developing world. The whole idea is to be able to propagate chicks, day-olds that are going to grow up, and then we reach out to those who are having difficulties to access proteins in this part of the world, which is Cameroon. And we believe this project can be replicated in other parts of Africa as well. We've been able to engineer giant species that can meat-giving species because most poor households find it difficult to be able to access red meat, and also turn to other aspects like bushmeat harvesting, which is not very sustainable. And we also think that alternatives like goat meat is very scarce, and sometimes the production of pigs is hampered by African swine fever that many people have not mastered. So we think that chicken can be, the raising of birds, chicken can be one of the viable options, and that's why African Center for Community and Development preoccupies itself towards that end. And we hope that these eggs are going to hatch, and when they hatch, we will be able to transfer it to our nursery, and from our nursery they will get into cages, and from cages they will get into smaller, bigger cubicles where they shall grow into the giant species that we are craving for, and thereafter we shall now market some to the public, maintain the DNA, and also try to continue the process and probably give some chicks out as to some people who are prepared to inherit them, to propagate them in their households. This will make these fowls more visible in our society, more accessible, and they can actually help to make people get to consuming more protein, which is vital for the fight against diseases like tuberculosis, malaria, HIV/AIDS, which is very rampant in a continent like Africa. And this is the nursery of the African Center for Community and Development. We introduce them and then transfer them into cages where they shall be intensively fed and then brought back down, where they can freely move and to develop into the giant species that we have engineered. So these are new species that have to be introduced. And here the temperature has been kept high so that they can develop plumage that will end up keeping them giving them the heat that is necessary to keep them alive as birds. Our incubators are locally made, and they've been enhanced with mechanisms that can detect good temperature that's good for hatching, and to maintain the kind of humidity that's also good for hatching. And with this we are able to zero in on the more complicated machines that we can have in Africa that are very, very expensive. Our goal, our wish is to be able to carry them to a higher level, probably making them to become solar based, and when they are solar based, then it is going to be more cost saving and advantageous to a continent that is situated around the equator, and where many poor people find it difficult to pay the very high prices of energy in the continent, especially following the privatization of many energy firms not so long ago. So we hope that this second generation incubators, which are now state-of-the-art incubators in this part of the world, will be replicated and used and vulgarized in Africa so that they can make more sense to the average household that are wanting to deal with poultry, feed on fowls, produce fowls, and so on.